The desert world was silent. A golden sun burned in the sky, spilling its heat across endless dunes that stretched in every direction. The wind carried fine sand like whispers, hiding the scars of an old war. Broken weapons lay half-buried, forgotten by time. It was a place of silence, yet a silence that felt heavy, like a secret waiting to be told. Through this emptiness, a lone ship cut across the sky. Its engines roared, then faded into quiet as it descended, landing on the cracked earth. The hatch opened with a hiss, and from within stepped a single human soldier. His armor was worn, scratched from battles long past, and his eyes carried the weight of someone who had seen too much. He looked around carefully. The silence of the planet pressed. On him, it was not the silence of peace, but the silence of watchful eyes. He felt that someone was out there, observing him, hidden behind the dunes. His hand touched the side of his weapon, but he did not draw it. He had not come to fight. He whispered to himself, almost like a prayer, "I only came to help." The soldier had been sent alone. No army followed him. No great fleet waited in orbit. This mission was different. He was not here to conquer. He was not here to destroy. He was here because he believed in something most soldiers had long forgotten: peace. But the planet did not welcome him. The wind shifted, and from the haze of the desert, figures appeared. At first, they looked like statues of gold. Then they moved, and he realized they were soldiers, tall, armored, and silent. Their helmets were smooth, their faces hidden, their armor glowing under the desert sun. They stood in perfect lines, hundreds of them, their movements as sharp as machines. The soldier stopped walking. His heart pounded in his chest. He was one man alone, standing before an army. Yet they did not attack. They did not raise their weapons. They only stared. One step forward, and the sound of armor echoed like thunder. The golden soldiers shifted, their line tightening. He froze. The silence grew louder, pressing on him like the desert heat. Then the crowd of soldiers parted. From the center, someone began to walk forward. The human soldier's eyes narrowed. She was taller than the rest, her armor more intricate, shining with strange symbols that caught the light. Her presence was unlike anything he had ever seen. She moved with elegance, every step measured, as if the desert itself bent to her will. Her helmet did not hide her face, and when he saw her, he felt the breath leave his chest. She was beautiful, but not in a human way. Her features were sharp, alien, yet perfect, as if carved from light. Her hair, long and silver, moved like flowing silk in the desert wind. Her eyes, bright and unyielding, locked on him. The alien queen. She stopped only a few steps away, her soldiers still as stone behind her. The air between them felt electric, heavy with unspoken meaning. The soldier lowered his weapon hand. He forced himself to stand tall. Though his knees trembled under her gaze, he had faced warlords, monsters, machines, but never someone like her. The queen tilted her head slightly, as if studying him. The silence stretched on until it felt unbearable. Then, at last, she spoke. Her voice was clear and commanding, but it carried a strange softness underneath. "Why does a human walk my sands?" The soldier swallowed. His throat was dry, but he answered, "I came to help." Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment, the desert itself seemed to hold its breath. "Help," she repeated, her tone filled with suspicion. "Your kind brought fire and death to these lands. Why should we believe in your help?" The soldier's heart pounded. He knew this was the moment, the choice that would decide if he lived or died. He stepped forward, only slightly, but enough to show he was not afraid. "Because I am not here to fight," he said. "I saw what war did to this world. I saw your cities burn. I cannot change the past, but I can give what I have left: food, medicine, my hands, my strength, whatever it takes. I only want peace." The queen studied him, her golden soldiers unmoving behind her. The silence stretched again. He could feel the weight of her eyes, as if she searched his soul for lies. Finally, she raised her hand. The golden soldiers shifted, weapons lowering slightly. The desert seemed to breathe again. But her eyes never left him. "Peace," she said softly, almost to herself. Then louder, "Very well, human. We shall see if your words carry truth." The soldier released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He had survived the first test. But as the queen turned and gestured for him to follow, a shadow of unease settled in his heart. This was only the beginning. The desert stretched before him, endless and full of secrets. The golden army moved in silence, and the queen walked with a grace that seemed both beautiful and dangerous. The soldier knew one thing with certainty. Whatever fate awaited him here, it would change his life forever. As the sun set behind the dunes, the story truly began. Under the burning desert sun, the human soldier followed the queen and her golden-armored warriors. The air was dry, every breath harsh, yet the silence of the alien host felt heavier than the heat. Sand crunched beneath his boots, the only sound he could hear apart from the rhythm of countless armored feet moving in perfect unison. It felt less like walking beside living beings and more like being swallowed by a machine, made of flesh and steel. He tried not to stare, but the queen's presence demanded his attention. She walked with effortless grace, her long silver hair catching the sunlight, her golden armor gleaming like fire. The soldiers around her seemed to orbit her existence, as if she alone were their center of gravity. The soldier knew instinctively this was not just a leader. This was something far greater, something to be feared and respected. They marched across the dunes until towering black stone walls rose out of the sand. Cracked and scarred from war, the alien capital looked like a city that had survived 1,000 battles. Golden banners rippled faintly in the hot wind. Gates creaked open, not with noise, but with a strange hum, as though the very stone had a voice of its own. The soldier stepped inside, his heart quickening. The city was alive. Despite its scars, people moved in the streets, tall, elegant, alien forms with eyes that glowed faintly in the shadows. They stopped what they were doing to stare at him, their expressions hard to read. Children peeked from behind doorways, mothers pulled them close. Whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. A human. He felt their suspicion, their anger, their fear. He kept his head high, but deep inside, he felt smaller than ever. He had promised himself he would not let fear control him. Still, the weight of so many eyes pressed against him like a storm. The queen stopped in the heart of the city, before a great hall carved from the same black stone. Its doors stood taller than any cathedral he had seen on earth, marked with glowing runes that pulsed faintly with light. She turned to face him. Her voice rang out, sharp and clear, echoing off the walls around them. "You claim you came to help. Then prove it." She raised her hand, and two of her guards stepped forward. Between them, they carried an injured alien child, her skin pale, her breathing shallow. The sight pulled the soldier's heart tight. Her chest rose unevenly, her small arms trembling even in sleep. The queen's gaze did not waver. "She suffers because of your people's war. If your words are true, if you are not just another liar dressed as a savior, then save her." The soldier knelt quickly, his armor scraping against the stone. He pulled open his pack, hands moving. Fast, he had some bandages, an injector of medicine, a water vial. But he had been trained as a field medic. He worked with steady hands, cleaning the wound, sealing it, cooling her fever. The crowd pressed closer, whispers louder now. Some jeered, others muttered prayers. No one moved to stop him. Minutes dragged on like hours. The desert sun burned above, sweat running down his back. Finally, the child's breathing eased. Her trembling slowed. Her eyes fluttered open large, glowing faintly, staring up at the human kneeling over her. The girl whispered something in her language, soft and fragile. The queen tilted her head, listening. Then she looked down at him. She says, "Thank you." The soldier sat back, breathless, his hands shaking not from fear but from relief. The child clung weakly to one of the guards, alive, stronger than before. The crowd grew silent. Even their whispers died. For the first time, he felt the weight of their eyes change. Suspicion gave way to something else, curiosity, perhaps even hope. The queen did not smile, but her gaze softened, just enough for him to notice. She raised her hand again, and the golden soldiers lowered their weapons, their rigid stances easing. "You speak of peace," she said slowly, each word deliberate, "and you act as though you mean it. But a single act is not enough. My people are proud, wounded, and filled with anger. They will not be swayed by words or by one saved life. The soldier nodded, his throat dry. Then let me show them. Let me earn their trust, one step at a time. Her eyes narrowed, sharp as blades. Yet something unreadable lingered there. For a moment, she seemed less a ruler of thousands and more a woman weighed down by endless burdens. You are alone here, human, she said. No army to protect you, no world to call to your side. If you falter, no one will save you. Understand. This you are not our guest, you are our test. The soldier met her gaze. He could feel his heart hammering, but he refused to look away. Then test me. I came here for peace. I won't run. For the first time, silence hung between them. Not as a threat, but as an acknowledgement. She turned sharply, gesturing to her warriors. The doors of the great hall opened, spilling golden light across the stone courtyard. Follow me, she commanded. The soldier rose to his feet, his legs heavy, but his resolve stronger than ever. As he stepped inside the hall behind her, the whispers of the crowd followed, echoing in his ears. He did not know if they saw him as a savior or a fool, but one thing was certain. The queen was watching him, closely, and whatever trial lay ahead, it was only the beginning. The great hall of black stone closed behind the soldier with a deep rumble, and the light of the dessert vanished, replaced by dim firelight flickering along the walls. Strange runes pulsed faintly, carved into the stone as if alive. The air was cooler here, but heavy with a presence he could not name. He walked slowly, his boots echoing in the vast chamber. The queen moved ahead, her silver hair catching the glow of the fires, her golden armor gleaming even in the shadows. She did not speak, and her silence was a test all its own. Behind him, two guards followed, their steps precise, their glowing eyes fixed on him like hunters watching prey. At last, the queen stopped before a long table carved from a single slab of black crystal. On it lay maps, weapons, and relics from battles long past. She turned to face him. Her voice was calm, but her tone carried the weight of command. You healed a child, that was good. But words and medicine are not enough. My people demand proof. They demand to see your heart. The soldier stood firm. His chest rose and fell with steady breaths, though his pulse raced. Tell me what I must do. Her eyes narrowed, studying him as though she were measuring the worth of his soul. Then she gestured, and the guards dragged forward 3 prisoners. Their hands were bound, their faces bruised, their eyes downcast. They were not human, they were from another alien clan, one that had fought her kind for generations. They are enemies, she said simply. Our laws say they must be executed. But you, human, speak of peace. So I will test you. Choose. Do you spill their blood and prove loyalty to my throne? Or do you spare them and show mercy and risk becoming the enemy of my people? The hall fell silent. The soldiers along the walls watched without moving, waiting for his choice. The air was thick, suffocating, as though the very stones leaned closer to hear his decision. The soldier's mouth went dry. He looked at the 3 captives. One was young, barely more than a boy, his eyes wide with fear. Another was old, with scars running across his skin, his gaze filled with defiance. The last was a woman, trembling, but standing as tall as her chains allowed. His mind spun. If he killed them, the queen's people might accept him, but he would betray everything he believed in. If he spared them, he might die before the hour was over. He lowered his head, his thoughts sharp as blades. Finally, he spoke, his voice steady though his heart thundered. I did not come here to kill the helpless. I will not take their lives, if that makes me your enemy. Then so be it. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some soldiers shifted, their hands tightening on their weapons. The guards tensed, ready to strike. But the queen raised her hand, and all froze. Her eyes never left his. For a long, unbearable moment, she said nothing. Then she stepped closer, so close that he could see the faint glow of her alien markings. Lines of light running across her skin like veins of fire. You are either very brave, she whispered, or very foolish. He held her gaze, maybe both. But my choice will not change. Something flickered in her eyes, something unreadable. Then she turned sharply and gestured to the guards, release them. The crowd murmured, shocked. The prisoners stumbled. Forward, their chains cut. The young one looked at the soldier with awe, the old one with confusion, the woman with silent gratitude. The queen's voice rang out across the chamber. This human speaks of peace. He rejects blood when blood is demanded. Remember this. The soldiers shifted uneasily, but none dared challenge her. The soldier realized then that her command was absolute, yet fragile. One wrong move, and the balance could shatter. Later, as the hall emptied, she stood alone with him. Her eyes softened. Just slightly. You have no idea what storm you have started, she said. My people will not forget your choice. Some will see it as weakness, others as strength. But all will watch you now, human. Every step you take will weigh on their hearts. He nodded, feeling the truth of her words. Then let them watch. I'll prove myself not with blood, but with what I can give. For the first time, her lips curved, not quite a smile, but not coldness either. We shall see. The firelight danced across the walls, throwing long shadows as she turned and walked away. The soldier stood alone, his heart heavy but unbroken. He knew the test was only beginning. This world would not bend easily. Trust would not come swiftly. But as he looked at the dark stone walls around him, at the runes that pulsed faintly like the heartbeat of the planet itself, he felt something stir within, a sense of destiny, a sense that he had stepped into a story larger than himself. The desert outside was vast and endless. The city was wounded but alive, and the queen, mysterious and powerful, had not turned him away. The soldier clenched his fists, the weight of his choice settling deep in his bones. He had passed this test, but the road ahead stretched far, filled with dangers unseen. Still, his words remained true in his heart. He had come only to help, and he would not stop, no matter the cost. The desert night was colder than the soldier expected. The city that had glowed under the sun now shimmered in pale silver light. Towers of black stone reached into the sky like jagged teeth, their walls traced with glowing lines that pulsed. Like veins, fires burned in great braziers, casting shadows across narrow streets where alien citizens whispered and stared. Wherever he walked, their eyes followed, some curious, some hateful, none trusting. The queen's guards led him through winding halls until he entered a chamber unlike any other he had seen. The walls curved upward like the inside of a great shell, alive with faint light that shifted like moving stars. Strange banners hung above, marked with symbols he could not understand. In the center stood a wide platform, carved from crystal, overlooking the city through an arched window. The queen stood there, her figure outlined by moonlight, her silver hair glowing like strands of light itself. She did not turn as he entered. Instead, her voice echoed softly through the chamber. My people whisper of you. Some call you brave, others call you a fool. They say you are here to deceive us, to wait until our guard falls, and then strike. Tell me, human, why do you not leave? Why do you stay in a place where every eye sees you as an enemy? The soldier stepped closer, the sound of his boots sharp against the crystal floor. He thought carefully, then spoke with honesty. Because leaving would be easier, and peace is never easy. If I leave now, then everything I've done, every risk I've taken, means nothing. If I stay, maybe I can change something. For the first time, the queen turned her gaze on him. Her eyes glowed faintly, deep pools of light that seemed to strip away every defense he had. You speak as though you believe yourself more than a soldier. Yet all I see is a man who has carried war across the stars. He felt the sting of her words, but he did not flinch. I am a soldier, he admitted. I've fought. I've seen worlds burn. I've lost friends, family, and a part of myself. But I didn't come here for war. I came here because I'm tired of it. Her expression shifted, just slightly, as though some small part of his words touched her. She turned back to the city, her voice quieter now. Do you know what it is to lead a people who trust no one, to carry their anger, their grief, their pain on your shoulders while you hide your own? He stepped beside her, gazing out over the city. Lanterns flickered below, voices carried on the wind. No, he said truthfully, I don't know that weight, but I know what it means to carry loss. I know what it means to fight for others when you have nothing left for yourself. The queen looked at him, and for the briefest of moments, the mask of command slipped. He saw not only the ruler, but the woman beneath, the loneliness in her eyes, the endless burden she bore. "You speak boldly, human," she said at last, "but words can only go so far. My people will not be swayed by them. They watch what you do, not what you say." The soldier nodded. "Then let them watch." Silence hung between them, but it was no longer cold. It was heavy with unspoken meaning, a tension that neither dared to break. The queen finally gestured to the guards, who stepped back into the shadows. Alone now, she studied him more openly. "You saved a child. You spared enemies. You stood before me and defied the will of an army. These are not the actions of a common soldier. Tell me, what do you truly seek here? Do you want forgiveness, redemption, or do you wish to carve your name into the stones of history?" The soldier met her gaze steadily. "I don't want glory. I don't want forgiveness. I only want to give something better than what I was given. If I can leave this world even a little less broken than I found it, then that is enough." The queen's lips curved not a smile, but something close. "You are unlike any human I have met." He allowed himself a faint chuckle. "That may be the only reason I'm still alive." Her eyes softened, though her voice remained firm. "Perhaps, or perhaps fate has tied you to this world in ways neither of us yet understands." The night deepened, and the city's lights shimmered like constellations across the desert. They stood together in silence, two figures from different worlds, bound by choices neither had planned. The queen turned once more to the window, her voice low, almost to herself. "We are both trapped by what came before. Yet, perhaps together, we may shape what comes after." The soldier did not answer. He only stood at her side, the weight of the moment pressing on him. He knew trust was still far away. He knew danger waited in the shadows, but he also knew this. A bond had begun, fragile as glass, yet real. And in that fragile bond lay the first spark of something that could change everything. The first warning came as a tremor underfoot. At first the soldier thought it was only the desert shifting, but then the sound grew a low rumble that rolled through the city like thunder. The alien guards stiffened, their glowing eyes flashing, as they raised their weapons from the high balcony of the queen's chamber. The soldier saw it, dust clouds rising on the horizon, fires burning in the night, and the unmistakable glint of steel moving like a storm across the dunes. The queen stood tall, her silver hair catching the torchlight. "They come," she said softly, though her voice carried the weight of command. "The rival clans have broken their silence. They mean to finish what the war began." The soldier's heart tightened. He had seen armies before, had fought them, bled against them, survived them. But this was different. He was no longer part of a fleet, no longer surrounded by human soldiers. This time, he stood with aliens who did not trust him, with a queen who tested him at every step. And now their survival rested on the edge of war. The city erupted in motion. Soldiers in golden armor poured into the streets, forming ranks with mechanical precision. The walls groaned as great gates locked into place. Banners snapped in the desert wind. The people rushed into shelters, their faces pale with fear, while children clung to their mothers. The sound of horns echoed through the night, sharp and desperate. The soldier turned to the queen. "Let me fight." Her eyes narrowed. "You would spill blood for a people not your own?" He tightened his grip on his weapon, feeling its weight. "I told you before, I didn't come here to fight. But if I must choose between standing idle or protecting those who cannot protect themselves, then I choose to fight." For a moment she studied him, her expression unreadable. Then she gave a single nod. "Very well, fight then, human. But know this: if you fall, I will not weep." He almost smiled. "Wouldn't expect you to." The clash began at the outer walls. The rival clans surged forward, their armor dark as night. There were cries rising above the desert winds. Arrows of light streaked across the sky, striking against shields that flared with golden sparks. The ground shook as massive beasts, armored and snarling, crashed against the gates. The soldier ran with the defenders, his heart pounding. He had no place among them, no banner to call his own. Yet as he stood in the ranks of golden warriors, something fierce burned in his chest. The first wave struck. The soldier raised his weapon, meeting the enemy head-on. His blade clashed against Alien steel, sparks spraying into the night. The sound of war swallowed everything, shouts, screams, the roar of beasts. He fought with precision, every move sharp, every strike meant to protect the line. For a moment, he thought he might be overwhelmed, but then he saw the golden soldiers around him glance his way. They had expected him to falter, to break, to run. Instead, he stood shoulder to shoulder with them, cutting down enemies twice his size. A great beast charged, its tusks tearing through the wall. The defenders fell back in panic, but the soldier ran forward. He leapt, slamming his blade deep into the creature's neck. It bellowed, thrashing, but he held firm, twisting until it collapsed with a final shudder. Dust and blood filled the air. The defenders roared, rallying. For the first time, the human was no longer an outsider. High above, the queen watched from the walls, her eyes fixed on him. Her people saw him not as an enemy now, but as something else, something they could not yet name. The battle raged deep into the night. The rival clan pressed harder, their numbers endless. The soldier's arms ached, his body screamed, but he refused to stop. When his blade grew heavy, he fought with his fists. When his breath burned, he forced himself to keep moving. He fought, not for glory, not for himself, but for every child hiding in the shelters, for every voice crying out in fear. At last, a final horn sounded. The rival forces, bloodied and broken, retreated into the desert. The defenders stood victorious, though the cost was heavy. Bodies lay strewn across the sand, fires burned across the walls, and the air stank of smoke and death. The soldier leaned on his weapon, breathless, his armor dented and scorched. Round him, golden warriors who once stared with suspicion now looked at him with something different, respect. The queen descended from the walls, her armor shining with moonlight. She walked through the wreckage with calm steps until she stood before him. Her soldiers parted silently, their gazes locked on the human who had fought as one of their own. "You should be dead," she said quietly. He gave a tired smile. "Should have been dead many times before. Still here." For a long moment she said nothing. Then she lifted her hand, and the crowd hushed. Her voice rang out across the city, clear and powerful. "This human came to us unarmed, unwanted, untrusted. He fought tonight not as a stranger, but as one of us. Remember this. Remember who stood when death came for our gates." The people cheered. The sound filled the night, rising higher than the flames, echoing across the desert. The soldier stood in the center of it all, his chest heavy, his body broken, yet his spirit unshaken. The queen lowered her hand, her gaze still locked on him, and in her eyes, for the first time, there was no suspicion. There was something far stronger, though she did not name it. The soldier knew one thing. His journey on this world had changed. He was no longer just a guest, no longer just a test. He had become part of something greater, and the bond between him and the queen, fragile, yet unbreakable, had only just begun. The city was quiet after the battle, but it was not the peace of safety. Fires still smoldered in the ruins. The wounded lay in rows along the courtyards, and the air was heavy with the smell of smoke and blood. The golden soldiers moved silently, carrying their fallen, tending to their kin. Yet everywhere the human soldier walked, eyes followed him, no longer filled with suspicion, but something heavier: curiosity, respect, and even awe. He should have felt proud, but instead he felt only tired. His armor was cracked, his arms bruised, his body screaming for rest. Still, he moved among the injured, offering what little aid he could. He bound wounds, lifted stones, and whispered words of comfort even when they did not understand his language. Every touch was a promise. He had not fought for glory, but for them. From the high terrace of her palace, the queen watched. She stood still, her silver hair loose, her armor set aside, draped instead in a robe that shimmered faintly like liquid gold. Her eyes did not waver. She had seen men fight before. She had seen warriors bleed, leaders sacrifice, but never had she seen someone fight as he did, not for conquest, not for honor, but for strangers who had once called him enemy. When the last cries of the wounded softened into silence, she sent for him. He came, weary yet unbroken, his steps steady though his body trembled with exhaustion. He bowed his head slightly as he entered her chamber. The firelight painting shadows across the walls. You called for me, he said. His voice was rough, but steady. The queen regarded him in silence for a long time before speaking. My people whisper your name now. They speak of the human who stood when our gates fell, who fought when hope was lost. They see you as more than an outsider. He shifted uneasily. I didn't fight for their praise. I know, she said softly. And that is why it matters. Her words hung between them, heavier than steel. She stepped closer. Her eyes locked on his. You came here alone. You risked everything. You should have died tonight, and yet you live. Perhaps fate chose you human. Perhaps it placed you here not as a guest, not as an enemy, but as something more. The soldier frowned. What do you mean? She paced slowly, her robe flowing like liquid light. My people are dying human, not only from war, but from within. Every battle leaves us fewer. Every year, our strength fades. We need something to survive. Something new. She stopped, her gaze piercing. And I believe that answer lies with you. The weight of her words struck him harder than any blade. He shook his head slightly, unsure if he had heard correctly. I came to help, but I am only one man. I cannot rebuild a world. Her lips curved, not in mockery, but in something close to sorrow. You misunderstand. It is not your strength of arms I seek. It is your blood. The chamber grew colder. His breath caught as the meaning sank in. She stood before him, regal and commanding, yet vulnerable in the truth she had revealed. Our bloodlines weaken. Our people cannot endure as we are. But you human, you carry something different. You fought beside us, and I saw what you are capable of. If your strength can become part of ours, then my people may yet have a future. He stared at her, torn between disbelief and the strange pull of destiny. You're saying, you want me to become part of your people? Yes, she said simply. Not as a soldier, not as a servant, but as something greater. Together, we can create a legacy that unites what was once divided. Together, we can forge a future no war can destroy. The silence between them deepened, charged with meaning he could not put into words. He thought of the children he had saved, the soldiers who had stood at his side, the way her people now looked at him. He thought of the queen herself, lonely, burdened, yet unyielding. His heart pounded, torn between fear and something he dared not name. And if I refuse? He asked quietly. Her eyes narrowed, but her voice was steady. Then you remain what you are, a soldier who came to help. You will still be respected. You will still be remembered. But the chance for something greater will vanish. And so too, perhaps, will my people. He lowered his gaze, struggling with the weight of her request. He had come here with only one promise, to help. And now, that promise had led him to this offer that could change not only his life, but the fate of an entire world. At last, he raised his head, his eyes steady. I don't know if I can give you what you ask. I don't even know if I understand it fully. But I came here to help. And if this is truly what your people need, then I will not turn away. For the first time, the queen's mask cracked. Her gaze softened, and though her face remained composed, her voice trembled with something unspoken. Then you have chosen, and in your choice, you have changed everything. She stepped closer, her presence overwhelming, her silver hair brushing his shoulder as she whispered, from this night onward, human, you are no longer only a soldier, you are part of us. The soldier stood frozen, the weight of destiny pressing upon him like the desert sky. He had come to bring peace. He had come only to help. And yet, in helping, he had stepped into a future no human had ever known. Outside, the city was quiet, its fires dying down, its people resting at last. But in the queen's chamber, a new story had begun, one that would echo far beyond the desert, far beyond this world, and into the stars themselves. The desert dawn came with a quiet stillness, the kind that made the world feel like it was holding its breath. The fires of the battle had faded, leaving only black scars across the golden sands. From the high walls of the city, the soldier looked out across the horizon. The sun rose like a burning jewel, painting the sky in colors of fire and blood. It was a new day, yet it did not feel like peace. It felt like the calm before another storm. He stood in silence, his armor battered, his body sore. Around him the city slowly returned to life, The wounded were tended, the dead honored. Children peeked from behind stone pillars to catch glimpses of him, whispering his name with a mixture of awe and disbelief. To them, he was no longer just a stranger. He was the human who had fought for them, who had bled for them, who had stood. When the gates nearly fell, the queen's summons came swiftly. Her guards, silent and watchful, led him back into the palace where torches still burned in the long halls. He walked with heavy steps, unsure of what awaited him. Each corner of the palace felt alive with whispers, as though the very stones now carried his story. In the throne chamber, she waited. She was dressed not in armor, but in robes of deep crimson and gold, her silver hair falling freely across her shoulders. Her gaze was steady, unreadable, yet something in her eyes carried a new weight. He bowed his head slightly. "You called for me." "Yes," she said, her voice calm yet sharp. "The night has passed, but the choices you made remain. My people will not forget. They whisper now of what is to come. They wonder what future awaits them. And you." The soldier hesitated. "I came here to help. I never asked for more. And yet more has been given to you," she replied. "When you fought beside us, you became more than a soldier. When you spared lives, you became more than an enemy. And when you chose to stand with me, you became part of something my people have not seen in generations. Hope." Her words echoed in the vast hall. He felt their weight press against his chest, heavier than any weapon he had carried. "I don't know if I can be what they need," he admitted quietly. Her lips curved faintly, not into a smile, but into something softer. "None of us ever know. But fate has chosen you, whether you wished it or not." The soldier lifted his eyes to hers, seeing the fire within them, the endless burden of a ruler who carried the survival of her people on her shoulders. He had not come here to change history. He had only come to offer peace. Yet now, history was changing around him. That night, word spread across the city like fire in dry grass. The queen had spoken before her people, her voice ringing out across the square. The human who had fought at their side was no longer just a visitor. He was to walk beside her, a part of their future. Gasps had filled the air, but no one dared challenge her command. The Golden Army stood silent, their eyes watching him with a new kind of respect. Days turned into weeks. The soldier found himself no longer ignored, no longer shunned. Children approached him openly, their laughter carrying through the streets. Warriors nodded in acknowledgement when he passed. He worked among them, lifting stones, repairing walls, tending wounds. He was not above them, not separate, but one of them. Slowly, painfully, the barriers began to fall, and yet whispers never ceased. Some saw him as salvation, others saw him as danger. In the shadows of the city, not all welcomed the queen's choice. One evening, as the twin moons rose above the desert, the soldier stood once more at the queen's side upon the high walls. The horizon stretched endless before them, dark and mysterious. The wind carried the scent of sand and stone. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. She turned, her silver hair glowing in the moonlight. "Regret choosing me," he said, "placing your people's future in the hands of a human." For a moment, she studied him, her eyes unreadable. Then she said softly, "Regret is for those who doubt their path. I do not doubt." She paused, her voice lowering. "But I do fear what comes next." The soldier looked out at the dunes, their shapes shifting in the moonlight. So do I. They stood in silence, the wind swirling around them. Beneath the surface of their words lay something unspoken, something fragile but unbreakable, a bond forged in blood, in trust, in choice. The queen's voice rose again, quiet yet powerful. "The world will remember you, human, not for the battles you fought, but for the fate you carried. My people will speak your name long after we are gone, and the child of tomorrow will carry both our legacies." The soldier froze at her words. He turned to her, his chest tightening, the weight of her meaning clear. She did not flinch under his gaze. She held it, steady and unyielding. Destiny had already begun to move, shaping a future neither of them had planned. The city below slept in uneasy peace, unaware of how its story would change. The desert stretched into endless night, its secrets hidden, its dangers waiting. And on the high wall, under the light of two moons, the soldier and the queen stood side by side, bound by a choice that would echo across the stars. The story did not end here. It was only beginning.